this is what we are going to stress on, and we'll make sure that staff obey and follow those rules. However, like I said, um, all of us, most of us come from big families.
Yes.
Sabi some man I go to the mommy money on the pillow. So, however, once we get colleagues like that, we are going to take very strict actions against them.
Okay. So in now, the country used to have the problem of just one pathologist. Is that a thing of the past?
It is. So I can tell you. So people do not understand this system. You know, when it comes to the medical legal system generally, it's a little bit complex. So we have what we call the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. So it happens to be that by virtue of that position, you are no longer a member or a staff of the Ministry of Health. You're a staff of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Yes. To which for currently which Dr. Always is. But we have pathologists, we have professors, we have in fact two professors at Connaught Hospital. We have one specialist, and we have other two specialists, one in Ghana, one in East Africa, who will be coming earlier 2026. They are already rounding up with their studies. So we have a lot of pathologists who can go. But by virtue of the position,
Okay.
if the
So it
police
has to be.
of the internal affairs or the justice minister or attorney general, as the case may be, writes a letter that we want to know the cause of the death of this, it passes through Dr. Always.
Okay.
So in fact, in countries that have established, you have the CMA and he has his team.
Yeah.
We used to lack that, but now we are getting that. We are getting professors, we are getting specialists in pathology. So all that there was only one person. No, no, no. We have people now who can do that, and we have a lot of them.
All right. Thank you so much. Continue to stay with us in the program. He is the hospital care manager at Connaught Hospital, Dr. Mark Kapoor. The program you're watching is a podium live on SABC television. We'll go for a short break. When we return, we continue with the conversation. Program is a podium live on SABC television. Still with me in the studio is the organizing secretary of Lawyer Society. Now, before we went for another topic, I was asking, the courts now has been established for expedition of these drug-related cases. Let's talk about your role as lawyers. Would we see you guys representing these people?
Okay.
Is it the human rights? Let's get
Yeah,
let's
it's
educate me.
a very important question, and it's not only for drug abuse or drug related cases, but I'm sure we need some public education on this aspect. Now, in the Constitution of Sierra Leone, Section 23, it's very clear that in our own laws, a person who has been accused
As a right.
has rights. And as part of those rights, our law says if you have been accused, we consider you innocent until you've gone through the judicial process of investigation or prosecution. At the conclusion, then you either be declared guilty or not guilty. So while you are going through, say, investigation or prosecution, all of those rights are coded. One of them is the right to be represented. So what what we must understand is this. There are people who would say, yes, I did it. And in those cases where the court would put the allegations to you to say, on so day, it's alleged that you were caught with quantities of kush, and then they ask you, guilty or not guilty. In Creole, normally they ask them, Asoebi or not Asoebi. Now, if you say, I'm guilty or Nasoebi, then the court would consider your sentence to say, oh, you've not wasted the court time, you have been honest with the court, and you are a first time offender. Maybe you were not even conscious of what was happening, because when it comes to drugs enactment, they are strict. If you are caught, if you are found in possession of drugs, prohibited drugs, the law is not concerned about whether you conscious about it or once it was found in your custody. So if you say I'm guilty, then they'll consider all of those things and maybe give you a minimal sentence. But after the trial, if you say I'm not guilty, after the trial it is found that you're guilty, some judges would say, well, you've wasted our time, we gave you the opportunity, and so now I would apply the strict sentence on you. Okay. So with the issue of representation, remember, he who asserts must prove. If you say this person was caught with drugs, you have to prove it. And this accused person, now defendant, would need a lawyer to be with him or her. It is possible the prosecution will prove their case. It is possible they will not prove their case. Let me give you examples. If there is suspicion that I have drugs in my custody, say in my house, there should be a search done also. Now the process of search is a legal process. You have to follow the procedure. If you fail, it may act against.
So it may not be admissible.
Second, if you're going to search my house, you would want me to be you're not going to search my house in my absence. So these are the issues that will require a lawyer to be representing this accused person to be able to show to the court that all of these things happened. So
follow due process.
yes, so the lawyer representing the defendant does not mean that he is saying, oh, not to so do, oh,
It's just the legal
it's
part.
the legal part to ensure that if the prosecution indeed has the proof, the evidence to prove, then fine. And in fact, there is what we call plea mitigation, where the lawyer, having now found the defendant guilty, the lawyer will now say, my lord, these things they normally happen. I would ask that you consider mercy instead of, so that's also the role of the lawyer, to beg, literally to beg for a lower sentence, or for now the new CPA, the new Criminal Procedure Act, we have all sort of sentencing, suspended, alternative, and so on and so forth. So you need a lawyer.
for someone who has been proven guilty beyond all reasonable doubt for this drug, especially this kush, there will be no other measures.
Well, I understand.
Because we see the lives of people now.
So that is it. So when once the prosecution can prove, in fact, some defendants or accused persons, right at the police station, don't tell the police this allegation against me is true. So why do you want to waste the court's time in that circumstance? Although some people would say, well, At the time they were asking me those questions, there was no lawyer with me. In fact, that is not what I told the police. So that is why we're saying, we're recommending that when people are taken to the police station, they are given, they are accorded the rights that they deserve.
Is that what obtained sincerely?
Well, yes.
Seldom.
Well, you should have.
Seldom see that.
You should have legal representation, so that if, for example, your lawyer was present when statements were obtained from you, would you now come later to say, "Oh, that was not what I said"? No. You see, so that's why we're saying we have to ensure that we give the right, so that when a conviction is obtained, we all know that, oh yes, that's correct.
And also, some other school of thought say, beyond the rehabilitation, beyond detoxifying these individuals, there are so many other things that is the responsibility of the government.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you,
Of course, I've taken note of those ones.
Okay.
Drugs is big business. Drugs is big business. If you have a kilo of cocaine, for example, that's expensive.
What about your conscience?
No. We're looking at these other issues around.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. So it's a very expensive commodity, and those who trade in it, they make a lot of money. They live big lives. So that is why sometimes it's also difficult, the fight, because you have people who are making gains at the detriment of others. Interestingly, most of those who push drugs that would kill people,
They don't take
they
it.
don't participate.
They don't.
They don't participate. So you see, so that's the kind of situation we're faced with. And that is why we have to be very strategic as to how we address it. Very strategic, because we can review our laws relating to drugs to say if you're found guilty of an offense of transporting or producing or dealing in drugs, they can do tracing to see what gains you've made from the trade. Yes. Some people have built houses, some have established empires.
Confiscate
Yes,
all of them.
we can. Nothing stops
Bring you
us
down because it brought lives down.
from looking at our laws. Yes, because if you, for example, you've been caught and they say, okay, we sentence you to 5 years imprisonment, and then you come back, you meet all of those wealth. But we have to look at ways to see if you have generated your wealth through drugs, what we can do with that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And as we round up, Doctor, and we also about it with regards to this drug issue. There was a time when rumors were going around. I'm not trying to clarify. I do not like basing my questions on rumors, but people were certain that formalin. That's why these people go to the graves to take the bones, because they say that's one of the components used in assembling this kush. They were saying that it was they got it from the mortuary and something like that. So now let's talk about, like you said, there is tough security now, CCTV camera, and let's talk about the trustworthiness of who is in charge of these things, these chemicals, these equipment. Let's talk about that.
No, yes. I could also not ascertain that, but I also heard that. But just to set the record straight, formalin is just like any other chemical. We also buy it from vendors around the town, so anyone could go and buy it. Yeah, from the same place where we buy them. That notwithstanding, like I said, I also heard. So I think one of the reasons also we put most of these security measures in place to really make sure that we monitor. Yes, we may not know who might be doing it. Like I said, but for the control of, say for example, the formalin we use, it goes through a process. So for example, at Kano we have a procurement officer, we have an internal auditor, of course the pharmacist, and the storekeeper. So for any product to come out of the pharmacy, all of these individuals have to be involved. There's a requisition form that everyone has to sign. So with this process, with this procedure, I guess it is going to be very difficult for them to just go and get a gallon of formalin and use it elsewhere instead of actually using it for the intended purpose. So it is going to be very difficult. However, like I always say, we are humans,
Yeah.
but one of the reasons we've put mechanisms in place to make sure if and when things like that happen, then we take action.
Okay. So now, finally, the maintenance and repairs. Trained experts in Sierra Leone to oversee that.
Yes. So one of the good things that has happened again in the Ministry of Health is to have